Good afternoon. I'm Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg. I'm joined today by members of our administration's leadership team as well as our civil rights prosecutors to make an important announcement. On January 28, 2019, members of the HPD Narcotics Squad 15 breached a residence located at 7815 Harding Street. That residence was occupied by Regina Nicholas and Dennis Tuttle. Both Nicholas and Tuttle were killed, and during that breach, 4 members of the squad shot. 1 remains seriously injured as I speak. HPD Narcotics Division Squad 15 entered the Harding Street home under the authority of a search warrant obtained that same day by former HPD officer Gerald Goins, a member of the squad. The search warrant was signed by a City of Houston municipal judge pursuant to an affidavit that had been prepared and presented by Officer Goins. The warrant was never presented to nor reviewed by any member of the District Attorney's office. The type of search warrant requested by Officer Goins was called a no-knock warrant. A no-knock warrant is a search warrant that authorizes entry into the target location without first knocking and announcing the presence and purpose of the officers executing the warrant. In order to get the municipal judge to sign the no-knock warrant, former HPD officer Goins made numerous false statements in his affidavit to the judge, including that a 2-week narcotics investigation into alleged narcotics activity at the residence had just been concluded, that a confidential informant had made a successful buy of heroin from an unknown 55-year-old male the previous day at the residence, that the alleged drug seller carried a 9mm handgun, thereby making a no-knock warrant necessary, and that knocking and announcing the officer's presence would be, quote, dangerous, futile, or would inhibit the effective investigation of the offense. A search warrant issued by a magistrate is a government document. In order to execute the no-knock warrant, a tactical plan was devised and prepared by former Officer Goins in anticipation of the raid on the Harding Street residence. The tactical plan was to be carried out by Officer Goins and 10 other members of Narcotics Squad 15. During the briefing about the tactical plan, former Officer Goins reiterated to his fellow squad members that the male in the residence was known to carry a handgun in his waistband and that there was a large dog who could pose a threat at the residence. At approximately 4:30 p.m. that same day, January 28, 2019, Narcotics Squad 15 breached the residence by force. In the immediate action that occurred, once the door was opened, Regina Nicholas, Dennis Tuttle, and their dog were killed. They were killed by members of Squad 15 as they executed the warrant. Cause of death, as confirmed by the ME, was homicide, multiple gunshot wounds to both victims. 4 members of HPD's Narcotics Squad 15, including Gerald Goins, were also shot. As far as who's responsible for those officers' injuries, the Texas Rangers have assisted us in this portion of the investigation, and I want to thank their director, Colonel Steve McCraw, for aiding us through their expertise and support of our attorneys' efforts. Their findings will be presented to the grand jury who will begin hearing this case in the next few weeks. 2 days after the raid and the killing of the civilians on January 30th, then Officer Stephen Bryant wrote a supplement to the original offense report, also a government record. In that supplement, HPD Officer Bryant claimed he had previously assisted Goins in the investigation of Harding Street drug dealing and that he had done so just the day before on January 27th. the day that Goins claimed a confidential informant had successfully purchased heroin from an unknown 55-year-old white male, that eventually being Mr. Tuttle. Bryant's claims were false. He further fabricated that 2 days after the raid on the Harding Street residence, that he, quote, recovered a plastic bag that contained a white napkin and 2 small packets of a brown powdery substance that he knew, based on his skill and expertise, contained heroin. Bryant claimed he recognized the drugs as the same drugs allegedly purchased by Goins CI the day before, January 27th. That was false. In an interview subsequent to the HPD investigation, Goins later admitted, 1, there was no confidential informant who purchased drugs at 7815 Harding Street. 2, he claimed instead that he personally made the drug buy. 3, he affirmed that Steve Bryant never made any identification of the substance alleged to have been purchased at 7815 Harding. 4, finally, Goins admitted that he could not determine whether Mr. Tuttle was the same person from whom he had allegedly purchased narcotics. Officer Goins was injured. The interview was taped. He answered in writing. Because false information was provided to a magistrate in order to secure a search warrant, Goins' actions violated Texas Penal Code 37.10, tampering with the government record, a second-degree felony. Because the execution of the warrant resulted in forced entry into the home at 7815 Harding by armed police officers, members of Goins' own squad shot and killed Regina Nicholas, Dennis Tuttle, and their dog. Under Texas law, if, during the commission of one felony, in this case tampering with a government record, a person commits an act clearly dangerous to human life, execution of a no-knock warrant by an armed squad of police officers into a private residence, that causes the death of another, in this case 2 deaths, it's first-degree murder. We call that felony murder. Today we charge Gerald Goins with 2 counts of felony murder. We've also charged former HPD officer Stephen Bryant with 1 count of second-degree tampering with a government document. And these charges are based on the fact that then HPD officer Bryant's false representations on his offense report, which the evidence will show were intended to support Goins' actions, were false. But because Bryant's actions occurred after the raid and the killings, he is charged with 1 count of second-degree tampering. The intent of the false entry was to defraud HPD investigators, supervisors, prosecutors, and the public. This morning, a judge signed arrest warrants for both defendants. Instead of executing those warrants, we contacted Goins and Bryant's attorneys, and we've agreed with them that they have until 3 p.m. today to turn in their clients. Both surrenders, I believe, are in progress. A Harris County grand jury will shortly begin to review all the evidence that's been gathered in the case to determine if further charges are warranted against either Goins or Bryant, if they're authorized against any other officers, and to review extraneous claims against Goins, which have come into our office directly from the street. Their job will be, along with ours, to determine if a greater pre-existing problem existed within HPD Narcotics Squad 15. The Houston Police Department handed over their complete investigation on May 22nd, and I anticipate that our investigation will continue through the remainder of this year. Prosecutors have been and are currently going through 14,000 different cases related to these officers. And I can tell you that after having talked with our leadership, amongst ourselves, we have not seen a case like this in Houston. I've not seen a case like this in my 30-plus years of practicing law. We recognize that the community has been violated. And I want to assure my fellow Houstonians and other residents of Harris County that we are getting to the truth. You have heard chapter 1. Each day, we uncover more. And with each fact, we work towards doing justice. The breach of the public trust gives us great pause in this case because our democracy depends on the public's trust of law enforcement and their courts. I trust the able prosecutors and investigators and staff of the DA's office, the work of the grand jury, HPD investigators, their chief, to help us find all the answers about why this tragedy occurred. We know how it happened. This is action number 1 in what has already begun to be an in-depth review of HPD Narcotics Division and specifically Squad 15. We recognize that our duty is to the people of this county and that while today the focus is on Gerald Goins and Stephen Bryant, there may be more to the story. I want to thank the law enforcement officers and investigators from HPD and their internal squad. I want to thank the chief of police. I want to thank our prosecutors. I want to thank DPS and everybody, the investigators of the DA's office who worked to bring these charges together. When the public trust is violated in Harris County and the people are wronged, we investigate, we prosecute, and we hold offenders accountable, regardless of their position, the size of their pocketbooks, or the uniform they wear. And Houston is safer because of that. Questions?
Why is this not indicted as capital murder, or could you explain the difference of why it wouldn't be capital murder versus felony murder if it was during the commission of another crime?
You know, the grand jury has not elected a final charge. We brought charges directly today because we felt that that was the best course of action in terms of setting off the rest of the formal investigation with the grand jury. And while they can consider capital murder, the difference is the specific intent required to set out and murder people. In this instance, we believe that the evidence shows that during the commission of one felony, Goins committed acts clearly dangerous to human life. It makes it murder. But capital murder could be considered by a grand jury.
District Attorney Ogg, there was so much of a specific type of narrative that came out the night of the shootings and thereafter. When you look back at that period of what was said by officials and what your office was able to uncover, what goes through your mind after you announce those 2 indictments?
You know, I'm going to speak for me and not for any other agencies, but as a lawyer, I've learned that it's best to wait till the evidence is in before we draw conclusions, because our assumptions can be wrong. If incorrect assumptions were made, then those public officials will deal with that. But they have worked with us to bring this case to fruition. They have been cooperative, and I appreciate their cooperation.
What do you say to the Tuttles, as well as to the family of Regina Nichols?
We know they're lawyers, and I have met Regina's brother. I want to tell them how sorry we are as a city and as a county for the actions that resulted in the loss of their loved ones' lives. And that our work is dedicated to ensuring that their loved ones receive justice and that this same group of acts, never happens again.
I apologize, I came in a bit late. Did you discuss motive at all? Why?
I did not. You know, interestingly, under Texas law, motive is not a required element of the crime of murder, and yet people always want to know. There are many other facts that are involved in this case, including a call by a citizen to the location, But motive is something often that we don't know till the very end of the investigation, and sometimes is never known. Who can know what lies in hearts these troubled? But I think that we will learn. There was a citizen call to the location. I think that remains to be investigated further.
Were there any charges you presented to the grand jury which were not true billed along with these charges?
This has not been presented to the grand jury, Joel. This has been directly filed by us as we hold the authority and ability to do that. It will all be presented to a grand jury as part of the complete investigation on the shooting of the Tuttles, the shooting, and, well, both of them, the shooting of the police officers, and other information about the squad.
What does it say that you took that step? You didn't present to a grand jury first, but you made a direct charge regarding these officers.
What it says is that this is a case like no other that we've seen. We handled it in a way we thought most appropriate, and we felt based on the safety of the public, the safety of the confidential informants that were used in this case, the fact that the defendants both have active passports, have access to their retirement money and their drop files, that it was important that we let the public know we had brought charges now. And that while the investigation goes, the public could rest assured that they were safe.
Are the two officers in state, you say they're surrendering, you've been working with them, are they in state surrendering at these offices, or are they coming in from out of state to surrender?
They're here. And of course, our team had eyes on them starting early this morning to ensure that should either one of them decide not to surrender, that we would be there to prevent that. We, of course, had backup from HPD. We are not first responders, but our folks have had eyes on them all morning. HPD's waiting in backup. And it's my understanding from both lawyers that they are surrendering.
Have you formulated a bond recommendation for Mr. Goins? What is
We have. We're asking for $250,000 bond on each count against Goins and $100,000 on the count against Bryant. I anticipate that there will be a bail hearing this afternoon, perhaps. The cases have landed in the 228th District Court. It looked like there was some, maybe a couple of courts where the cases had gone, but as you all know, the lowest cause number attracts, and we believe that's in the 228th. So we anticipate a bond hearing either later today or in the very near future. That's what the lawyers have asked for.
So,
We noticed that.
do you know what prompted this raid? What was the theory for these officers to create, fabricate evidence and present it as a warrant?
So without going into Officer Goins or Bryant's motives, which I'm not prepared to do right now, I will tell you that the narcotics squads exist to investigate narcotics crimes in a neighborhood, that this address had come to the attention of the narcotics squad because of a neighbor, but what Goins did or did not do has not been revealed, and I don't intend to talk about it today. I can tell you that they entered the evidence on the sworn word of Gerald Goins, that a confidential informant had purchased heroin at that address the day before, and we know now by Goins' own admissions that was false. He claims he bought the drugs. We don't.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Just two questions. Is that confidential informant that Goins originally named cooperating with you in this investigation?
She has cooperated with the investigating officers from HPD, and we anticipate continued cooperation.
And we noticed former Chief McClellan is here.
Close. It's Chief Bradford.
Sorry.
He preceded, no, it's quite all right. He preceded McClellan. Both he and former council member Gracie Sines have joined our leadership team. I welcome their expertise. They've both held public office. Of course, Chief Bradford has been the former chief of police, and I think both have contributed significantly to the brain trust that is this leadership. I rely on these individuals that you see around me every day. These are not solo decisions that we pop off. We get together, we communicate. I can tell you they are the hardest working group of public servants in town. And I'm very proud of their support and their actions through this entire ordeal.
Can we have a statement from Mr. Perez?
Of course, yes. Can you let me finish answering the questions in English, and then we'll have Ruben step up.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
how far back are you looking? I know the police department's investigation went back 5 years. Are you going back farther? Give us the scope of what you're looking at.
Right now, we're looking at those 14,000 cases. They do exceed the 5-year time limit. I will tell you that in the 2,000 or so cases that have been the product of Gerald Goins' narcotics career, that we have agreed with our post-conviction group and our conviction integrity group to review those cases. That's where we are.
This is a complex investigation and a very close one because of the parallels that you have along with HPD in other areas. This said, because of those difficulties at times, was there any type of immunity granted to any members?
No. No immunity has been granted. No grand jury presentation has yet been made. All those things are, of course, possibilities in every criminal presentation to a grand jury and to a petit jury. And I can't predict right now and would not want to predict whether or not any immunity would be granted. But we have not, to be clear.
Can you say, is this the actions by these two officers, was this an isolated incident, or do you think that this was part of a larger pattern in their careers, or can you speak to any of that?
Yes, sir. The purpose of the broader investigation of Gerald Goins' past cases and of the squad's ties to these 14,000 different cases is for that specific reason, to determine if this was a single act by rogue officers or whether it's part of a greater and pre-existing problem in that squad or that division. But I'm not prepared to, in any way, either affirm or deny that there are other actions besides these. I can tell you, though, we have had individuals contact our office who have had prior contact with Officer Goins, and there are other complaints that we are reviewing.
Do those include stealing money?
They do.
What about drugs or guns?
They do.
For both Goins and the other officers?
No,
Just-
no, ma'am. Just Goins. At this time, I'd like to welcome Ruben Perez. He is the Bureau Chief of Special Crimes, Harris County District Attorney's Office. Ruben?
Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. Me llamo Rubén Pérez. Soy el jefe de la oficina de crímenes especiales. Trabajo por la fiscal Gemma, fiscal del condado de Harris. Ahora en la mañana, un juez firmó una orden de arresto para Gerald Goins y Stephen Bryant, oficiales que eran de la Houston Police Department, que eran oficiales que trabajaban narcóticos en la ciudad de Houston. Gerald Goins está acusado de 2 casos de muerte. Stephen Bryant está acusado de un caso de delito de manipulación de pruebas. El rango de castigo en Gerald Goins por la muerte es de 5 años a 99 años o vida perpetua. El rango de castigo para Stephen Bryant es de 2 años a 20 años en la prisión de Texas. Ahora en la mañana, los abogados de nosotros contactaron a los abogados de Goins y Bryant y les dijimos que se entregaran, y creemos que es lo que están haciendo ahorita, entregándose a los oficiales. Un gran jurado va a comenzar oyendo evidencia en nuestras siguientes semanas. Van a presentar abogados de nosotros la evidencia que el departamento de Houston ha presentado a nosotros. Vamos a comenzar una investigación no nomás en Goins y Bryant, pero también otras acusaciones que nos han traído, y también vamos a ver qué pasó con ese escuadrón de ese departamento de narcóticos. La fiscal Kemad está aquí para proteger a nosotros, a los ciudadanos, a los residentes del condado de Harris, y vamos a hacer todo lo posible para ver que vaya justicia para la familia Nichols y la familia Torres, porque estamos investigando a ver qué pasó allá en esa redada que pasó ese día. Estamos aquí para servir la comunidad y también para ver que se haga la justicia para esas familias. No nomás para ellos, pero para todos los ciudadanos del condado de Harris.
En base a eso, ¿qué se va a hacer con los casos que se presentaron por estos dos oficiales y que fueron juzgados? ¿Qué va a pasar?
Esos también están investigando, hemos investigado diferentes casos que presentó Goins y algunos le hemos retirado los cargos a los acusados, depende de las circunstancias que pasan en ese caso. Pero sí, hemos retirado unos casos ya y estamos investigando. Tenemos 14,000 casos que estamos investigando ahorita. 14,000.
El caso se lo presentan al gran jurado, ¿bajo qué cargos y qué cargos puede considerar el gran jurado aumentar?
Bueno, ahora nada más le pusimos cargos a Goins por dos casos de muerte y, como le dije a Brian, un caso de manipulación de pruebas del gobierno, y el gran jurado puede investigar ese caso, puede considerar esos casos, pero también puede considerar otros cargos, y esa es una investigación que se está haciendo ahorita y no sabemos en dónde va a parar. Vamos a seguir la evidencia.
Una vez arrestados, ¿está considerada alguna fianza?
Sí, la fianza que hemos recomendado nosotros son $250,000 por caso de muerte por Goins y $100,000 de fianza para Brian.
¿Qué le dirían a la familia de las víctimas? Dijo la fiscal que se siente mucho y que se va a buscar la justicia.
Pues seguro, por eso estamos aquí, para servir al público. Por eso está la fiscal Kemad, es lo que hace ella, lo que hacemos nosotros en el nombre de ella, de que se haga justicia, para no nomás gente que está ciudadanos, pero toda la gente que está en nuestro condado, si llegaron aquí legalmente o ilegalmente. Estamos aquí para servir a todo el público.
Se hablaba que este caso es muy peculiar en Houston, nunca se había ocurrido algo así. ¿Nos puede hablar acerca de eso y por qué la fiscal decidió entablarle esos cargos de manera inmediata y no esperar a un jurado indagatorio?
Pues lo que queremos hacer es que se haga la justicia. Y en este caso pensamos que era la mejor idea de ponerle cargos para saber que el público sepa que estamos haciendo algo, que estamos buscando la justicia y vamos a seguir investigando de todos modos. Ojalá que le haya respondido su pregunta.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias por todo lo que hacen ustedes para ayudar. ¿Okay? Gracias.
Gracias.